a contract negotiation that was going on. ESPN certainly did not want to lose her, but in the end, rather, she made a decision to walk away from the show effective immediately.
But don't ask me the details, because I'm not going to tell y'all the details. That's none of y'all business. Oh, and I don't know the details.
he made it sound like something wild happened.
Correct.
And there's no reason for
Molly Qerim just exposed Stephen A. Smith in the dirtiest way possible, and fans can't believe what they're hearing. According to Molly, Stephen A. sold her out for a $2 million payout. And that betrayal didn't just cost her a job, it shattered her entire reputation in front of the sports world. What makes this even crazier is that Molly's not just talking, she's got receipts, including leaked phone calls, secret meeting notes, and text messages that allegedly point straight at Stephen A. Smith. Now, everyone's asking the same question: did Stephen really snitch on Molly for a check? Or is she setting him up to take the fall? To really understand what went down, we have to go back to September 15th, 2025. The day everything changed for Molly. It was just another Monday morning. She clocked in, prepped for first take, and headed to her office like usual. But waiting for her was a letter, not a thank you note or a promotion, but a cold notice telling her she'd be out of a job by December. After 10 years of holding First Take together, managing egos, and keeping the show balanced, she was suddenly told to pack up and leave. And before Molly could even announce it herself, the story broke online. Every sports outlet was reporting the same headline: Molly Qerim set to leave ESPN after contract negotiations fall through. That night, Molly took to Instagram to share her heartbreak, writing, "Now that the news came out earlier than I intended and not in the way I hoped." That one line said it all. After a decade of dedication, she was blindsided, betrayed, and humiliated in public. But the biggest shock came the next morning. Molly didn't show up for work. No goodbye episode, no final appearance. She resigned on the spot. ESPN wasn't ready for that. Their response was cold and suspicious. Even ESPN President Burke Magnus released a short, rehearsed statement saying they respected her decision and wished her well without even mentioning her 10 years of service. That's when Stephen A. Smith's name started coming up. Industry insiders began whispering that this betrayal didn't come from the network, it came from someone inside. Rumors started spreading that Stephen A. might have leaked confidential contract details and cashed in on a $2 million side deal. Former ESPN host Marcellus Wiley even hinted at it in a live session, calling it a strategic backdoor move. Suddenly, the story looked a lot darker. Now fans are torn. Did Stephen really sell out Molly to protect himself and secure the bag? Or is Molly flipping the narrative to make him look like the villain? Whatever the truth is, this scandal isn't over. And it's proof that in today's digital era, you can't hide anything, especially now that YouTube's new automation policy is cracking down on AI voiceovers, repetitive content, and fake drama. The platform is rewarding real emotion, real storytelling, and authentic human voices just like this one. So, what do you think? Did Stephen A. Smith really betray Molly Qerim for money? Or is there more to the story than meets the eye?
So they're reporting that it's supposed to be the end of the year. Molly, by action, says it's right now. Instead of, I'm leaving now, I'm leaving right now. She made it immediate. And then Stephen A. Smith makes the statement. Now, interesting once again, see, peep all these differences, right? These contradictions in terms of how they usually move and how they're moving with Molly. Max Kellerman left. Stephen A. Smith didn't even show up for the last day. Remember that? Interesting. And we all know that typically they don't talk about talent when they're gone. They just say, thank you for your services and we wish you well. This is a little different for many reasons. So when they're trying to paint it, it looks a lot different.
That last line hit everyone hard. Why did Molly walk away like that? One day she's on air, doing her thing, and the next, she completely ghosts the network. No goodbye, no warning, nothing. But once Stephen A. Smith stepped in, the picture started to make sense, or at least looked like it would, because what he said changed everything. It wasn't just the network that betrayed Molly. The real betrayal came from someone much closer, her co-host, her friend of 10 years, the one person she thought would always have her back. The very next day, Stephen A. showed up on First Take alone. No Molly, just him, sitting there, trying to hold it together while explaining why the woman who shared that desk for a decade was suddenly gone. You could hear the emotion in his voice, but if you really listened, something didn't add up. He said Molly's departure was none of our business, yet in the same breath, claimed he didn't know the details himself. that contradiction, it's exactly why fans started questioning everything.
Molly is a coworker. Molly is somebody that I have leaned on many occasions in the past, as she has done when it comes to me. We've been partners on the show for the last 10 years. And a lot of times some of these things happen and it's just uncomfortable to see. The details, quite frankly, are none of y'all business. But it's not as if I know all the details.
But things got even shadier when Stephen A. started talking about the contract negotiations. One minute he's saying he doesn't know any of the details, and the next, he's casually dropping insider info only someone deep in the loop would know. The contradictions were everywhere. Viewers couldn't tell if he was protecting the network or protecting himself.
There was a contract negotiation that was going on. ESPN certainly did not want to lose her. But in the end, she made a decision to walk away from the show effective immediately, as you see from her Instagram post, her Instagram story last night.
But while fans were side-eyeing Stephen A., Molly's silence said everything. Because in her farewell post, she left out one very specific name, his. Almost like he was right there in the room when that decision went down. Almost like he knew way more than he should have. What really shocked people wasn't what Stephen A. said. It was what Molly didn't say. In her goodbye message on Instagram, she thanked the fans, the crew, and everyone who made the show what it was. But one name was missing, Stephen A. Smith. Not once. Not even in passing. And for context, when big names leave shows, they usually go out of their way to thank their co-hosts. Remember when Shannon Sharpe left Undisputed? He spent nearly 10 minutes thanking Skip Bayless and everyone behind the scenes. But after 10 years of working side by side, building one of the most iconic shows in sports media history, Molly couldn't bring herself to mention Stephen A. at all. And that silence, it spoke volumes. As one industry insider put it best. Sometimes, what's left unsaid tells the whole story.
Then a report comes out. That report comes out the next morning. Instead of Molly showing up to work, she puts out an Instagram post. And in that Instagram post, you guys remember, one thing she didn't mention was anybody by name, including Stephen A. Smith. Now, I've left a show or two before, and trust me, you're gonna name some names when you leave that. Just think about Shannon Sharpe when he left Undisputed. Goodness, it took about 10 minutes of all the names he dropped. That's my point. Molly didn't do that. So that lets you know already there's some friction behind the scenes.
And honestly, they were right. The way Molly exited, it was clear she wasn't just walking away quietly. She was making a statement, and what better statement than forcing Stephen A. Smith, the same man she believed betrayed her and wrecked her career, to sit in that chair alone, fumbling to explain why she wasn't there anymore. By then, the entire sports media world was buzzing. Rumors, speculation, theories, but nobody really knew what went down. That is, until Stephen A. started talking. And the more he talked, the clearer it became. He was the one who sold her out. Here's where things get messy. To really understand why Molly exposed Stephen A., you have to understand the kind of power he holds at ESPN. Stephen isn't just another on-air personality. He's part of the inner circle. The one sitting in those high-level meetings where they decide who stays, who goes, and who gets paid. Molly, meanwhile, was earning around $500,000 a year, a solid number. Until you realize Stephen was making over $20 million. That's 40 times her salary. And even hosts on smaller shows were earning more. So when her contract came up, she did what anyone in her position would do. She asked for more. More pay, more respect, more opportunity. But instead of negotiating, ESPN shut her down, told her to be grateful, and that's when something inside her snapped. Molly wasn't going out quietly. Her first target, the man she thought had her back, Stephen A. She started retweeting posts, calling him out as a hypocrite. One of them went viral overnight. But what really pushed her over the edge was when Stephen went on air, pretending not to talk about her. While describing her situation word for word, he said, "Some people overestimate their value and end up losing everything." Fans caught it instantly, and that's when the entire story blew wide open.
But I'm watching, and I've been watching over the last several years, people in this business fall by the wayside because we forget that all of us ultimately answer to people. We don't get to define our own value. We don't get to define our own worth. We don't get to sit there and summarily say, this is who I am and this is what I'm going to do. And guess what? I don't give a damn what anybody say unless you have the leverage to do it. because business is all about leverage.
Now, this is what really had fans heated. Stephen A. Smith talking about humility. The irony wasn't lost on anyone, because if there's one thing fans know, it's that every time Stephen A. negotiates a contract, it turns into a full-blown spectacle back in 2009. He was dropped from ESPN after pushing too hard for more money and later admitted his ego cost him the job. Fast forward to 2024, and he did it again, going on a full press tour, comparing himself to Dak Prescott just to pressure the network into giving him another raise. So when that same man turned around and came for Molly Qerim, the one person who helped him rise, fans called foul immediately. The backlash was instant. Twitter, YouTube, podcasts, everyone was dragging him. But here's the wild part. Ever since the storm hit, Stephen A. has gone completely silent. Not a word about Molly, not a tweet, not a statement, nothing. Almost like he knows that saying anything, right? Now would only pour gasoline on an already raging fire. As for Molly, she's far from done. If ESPN thought she was going to leave quietly, they were dead wrong. She's not stopping with Stephen A. Smith. She's digging deeper, and when she's done, it won't just be his reputation on the line. It'll be the entire network's. So the real question is, who's next on her list? Because Stephen A. might just be the beginning.